We'll get started. So today we're supposed to go through lists, but first let's make our game, and then after we make our game, we're gonna start adding lists because you'll see that there's a problem with keeping track of.
I
I'm sorry.
almost accidentally um I almost accidentally made a new studio instead of project.
I see. Just make sure it's a new project, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So once you have that, mhm.
Delete the cat.
Yeah, delete the cat, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna play a catching game. Or sorry, what we're going to create is a catching game. But this catching game is not like the basket and the ball falling. Well, it is kind of like that, but except this one is. I think you're too young to remember this one. This is called
Ping pong.
Game and Watch. It looks something like this. If you see my screen, so let's see. It looks something like this, where we have the game and this is called the Game and Watch. This is a very old game. So what this game does is you have a character, and this character has five silhouettes or basic shadows, and these shadows, everything there's balls falling, and then these shadows have to move to the correct location in order to catch the ball. So we're going to recreate that. Okay, so let's get started by first deleting the cat, and then let's create an icon that is going to catch an object. So let's look for a sprite that looks like it's catching something. Mm,
Choose.
I'm gonna choose Calveret. Calveret. It looks like he's trying to catch something.
You wanna eat this?
Okay. Once you have this,
I'm still.
okay, just let me know when you're ready.
One of the costume. I'm gonna choose referee because one of the costumes of him looks like he's trying to catch something. The one where his arms go like,
Yeah, that sounds good. Choose it.
and then delete the other costumes.
Okay. So once we have that, so we have our character. Let's put this character in the bottom left. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make 5 copies of this character. We're gonna make clones, and then we need to add a ghost effect to it. So it has to be semi-transparent. And then when we're selecting that object, that character is going to be 0% ghost effect. So that means he's gonna be fully visible. And then when we don't select them, he's gonna go back to ghost. Okay. So to start this off, first, of course, let's create our clones. So first, let's grab a flag. So when the flag is clicked,
Repeat.
sorry,
Repeat.
yeah, repeat. We need to repeat this. We're gonna do this 5 times, right? So we're gonna repeat 5 times, right? And we're going to create a clone of myself. And we want this to every time it creates a clone, we want to change the x-axis on the x. So we're gonna change x by 90. So change x by 90. Okay. And then we press flag, and I think the character is a little too much. So maybe let's see. I'm gonna set him around here. I'm gonna grab a go-to block. So go to um, on the x. Let's go to -180, and the y is -130. Now we press play, and then yeah, looks good. Now we have 5 characters here. The only thing we see is a little arm sticking out, and the reason why we see a little arm sticking out is because the original one is still shown. So we want to hide the original one, so we hide at the end, and then we show the clone. So when I start as a clone, we show. Okay. Hey, let me know when you're ready.
Ready?
Okay, so so now that we have our five characters, what we need to do is we also have to create five objects that, well, in total of 15 objects across the screen, because that object is going to fall, and this character is going to catch it. So let's choose another sprite. I'm gonna choose apple as the closest one. Looks more like a cherry.
I'm gonna choose ball.
Okay, that's fine.
Because
So we're
it,
gonna, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna choose ball because it's a ball.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, and then what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna do exactly the same, except we need to change the y-axis. So I'm gonna just copy this and put it inside the apple. Okay, so we have these two blocks, and instead of -130, I'm gonna do 140, and press flag, and then we should have our five apples. Okay, we're gonna do something right below it. So just make sure you copy that. Okay. Once you have that, the next thing we need to do is we need to change the y-axis, because we need to make other five, but these ones are going to be smaller, and then the last row is going to be small. So there's going to be 3 rows of 5 apples. So that's a total of 15. So 5 and then times 3, so it's 15. So we're going to copy, sorry, we're going to do this again. So let's go to motion, and we're going to change y by, I'm going to do change y by -90. Okay, and then set x to -180. So it's going to go back, and then the -90 is going to be around here. Okay, once you have that, then we're just going to copy the repeat code. So repeat 5 blocks. So repeat here. Oops, I put this here and press hide, and then I'm going to press the flag, and it's going to look something like this. Okay, and that's exactly what we want. Now, the only thing we need to do is make the apples smaller, because the apples are still the same size. So we're gonna go to change size, or set size, to this one's gonna be 60. Okay, and then the first ones are going to be 80. So it's a set size percent to 80. Okay, so remember, we need to add set size to 80 and then set size to 60. So now it's gonna look something like this, where you have a smaller apple. So I'll give you a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes to finish this up. Okay, and then try to figure out how to do the third row. And we're gonna do exactly the same, except we're gonna do the third row. Okay? I mean, you're gonna figure out how to do the third row. Okay, let me know if you have any, if you finish. Okay.
Um, it's not working. I have the exact same code, but the balls are in, but the clones are inside each other.
Make sure you have the change X by.
I do.
You want to share your screen?
Oh. What? They're in the same. They're inside each other. Like they're inside each other.
Oh, I know the problem. The first, you see the what was that? After the repeat five, the first repeat five, you have change x by. It's actually changed y by.
Oh.
Do you see it? Yeah, that one. It's changed y by. And that's negative 90.
Oh no.
There you go. Okay. So try to figure out how to do the third row. Let me know when you're ready.
Done.
Okay. Let me. Oh, perfect. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So yeah. So all you did is what, copy, right? Okay. So let me catch up. So we have this, and then change. Oops, I forgot to copy this part. So we have changed y by 90 and good. Okay. So are we good? We're good, right? Now the next thing we're gonna do. Well, actually, I'm gonna reduce instead of 90. I'm gonna put negative 80, a little bit higher. That looks good. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to make all these clones have a what is called the ghost effect, because they need to be transparent, not selected.
So go
So
to
I'm
referee
sorry.
and
I'm
then
sorry.
so go to referee and get a set ghost effect 2
Hmm.
and put it behind the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it at 0, or no, I'm gonna put it at 80. So if I put it at 80, when I press the flag, and that's exactly what we want. It's kind of transparent. Okay. Same thing with cabaret. So I mean with the catcher, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go to change ghost by, not change ghost, set ghost effect to 80. Okay, and then everything should be kind of not shaded.
What? No, that looks hard to see. Mom, I finished the bread.
Did you finish the both of them? The two sprites?
Yes.
Okay. So we have the two sprites. So now they're both have ghost effects. Now what we need to do is, how do you know which one you have selected? So at the beginning, you have the first one be selected, right? The first clone. But how do you distinguish one clone from the other?
Clone ID.
Yeah, we need to set a clone ID, right? So just like we did last time, we're going to click on variables, and we're going to make a variable. Okay. For this variable, this is going to be for this sprite only, because what's it called? Each clone is going to have their own ID. So make sure this is for this sprite only, and we're just going to call it ID. Okay. And then we're going to make another variable And this variable is going to be for all sprites. And this variable is going to be player or yeah, player ID. Okay. So we have ID that is just for this sprite, and then we have player ID that is for all sprites. Okay. Reason why? Because player ID can change, and that player ID is going to be the same for all the sprites. ID though, ID is not going to be the same. Each one has their own ID. Okay. So we need to set an ID for each one. So to set an ID for each one, we need to go here where it says click when the flag is clicked, set ID to 1. Okay. And then we're going to change ID by 1. Every time we make a clone, the ID goes up by 1, up by 1. So then the ID becomes 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Okay. And then each clone will have that ID set. Okay. And then back here, when I start as a clone, now we need to check, is that ID that the player is selected, is it me? If it is me, then we're going to change the effect to 0 because I'm selected. If I'm not selected, then I'm going to switch my effect to 80. So we're going to grab a forever block and we check if okay, if my ID is the same thing as player ID. Okay. Actually, you know what? We're not going to grab an if. We're going to grab an if else. So make sure you grab an if else, and we're gonna put it here. Okay. If else ID is the same thing as player ID, so my ID is the same as the selected ID, then I'm going to change my ghost effect. Go back to looks, set ghost to 0. Okay, because we don't want no ghosting. If it is selected, you're gonna change ghost effect, or not change, sorry, set ghost effect to 80. Okay. So let me know when you're ready to move on.
Ready?
Okay, perfect. Okay, so now that we have this, how can we control the player? Of course, we can use the left arrow and right arrow, but how is that going to connect with the what player do we select? So the left and right arrow can actually be used to add and subtract this player ID. So depending on what player ID it is, that's the one that's gonna turn on. So let's take a look at that. We're gonna go when the flag is clicked. Okay, this is normal. So when the flag is clicked, I'm going to forever check if left arrow, so touching, no, not touching, key pressed, left arrow. Okay, so if left arrow is pressed, then my ID becomes less. So I go to our variables and I go to change. Instead of ID, it's going to be player ID. So I change player ID by -1 because I'm going down the list. Okay, I duplicate this, and this is going to be right arrow, and this is going to go +1. Okay, so now if I press the flag, none of them are selected because the player ID is equal to 0. So we need to change that to 1. So now I can go like this, and one of them will be selected. But you notice that if I hold the key, it's gonna go super fast, and that's not good. We want it to be a little bit slower because we're slow at pressing the button. So here we're gonna add a delay. So we're gonna go to control and then wait for 0.1 seconds. Now when we go left, right, and we have a cool selection. Let me know when you're ready.
But if the player ID would be 5 and go over, then none of them would be selected.
Yep. So how do we fix that problem? How do we
Player ID is more than 5 or less than 1, then set it to.
Correct. So do it and then show me how it looks like. I'll give you. Let me know when you're ready.
Which one? Which
Uh,
flag,
what? Which one?
flag clicked?
Sorry, what?
Which one flag clicked?
I couldn't hear you. What was that?
Which one flag clicked?
Which one do you right click? Or
Which flag clicked?
no,
Which
no, no. What you were just saying. If it's greater than something or less than
no,
something, then set that player ID.
no, but which flag click do I put it on? But which
I can't.
one flag click do I put it on?
Which flag click? Well, that's why you have to figure it out. Try. I'll give you a couple of minutes, and then you have to figure it out. It's the one I'll give you a clue. It's this one, and that's it. So let me know when you're ready. If you want, you can share your screen so I can see what you're doing.
Okay. I think it works now, but it does blink if you make it go to 0. Then when it goes back to 1, maybe. Oops.
So let's take a look. Okay, so you have it correct. The only thing is you have it in the wrong position because take a look at the change. So when it changes a number, it waits for 0.1 seconds. So that's why it blinks. So what you need to do is you need to put each if statement inside the change. So let's take a look at my screen and then you'll see how it's done. Okay, so we have this and we have if um, greater than, less than, and we have these two, okay? And then we have our variable, we have oops, player ID and player ID. Okay. So here, if player ID is greater than 5, it's going to set player ID to 5. Okay. And same thing here. If it's less than 1, it's going to set player ID to 1. Okay. Now these ones have to be right after you change the player ID. So here, greater than is going to be here because we're changing the player ID by 1, and then right here we take action. Same thing up here. We have to do it after we change the player ID, because here
Now
this one.
blink.
I'm sorry.
Now it doesn't blink.
Yeah, now it doesn't blink because remember that 0.1 seconds was the thing that was stopping you. Was that making sorry? It was making you blink because it disappeared, but then you told it, okay, go back. So that's why it disappeared and it came back. Okay, you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the apple. So the apple is going to be a little bit different. Instead of us controlling the apple, we're going to make it go random. Okay, so we're going to follow what we did with our player, except instead of input, it's going to choose a random number. So let's set up our IDs here. So let's make a variable just for this sprite, and let's call it ID. Okay, just for this sprite. Okay, and then make another variable, and this is for all sprites, and let's call it what should we call it? Falling ID, catching ID. Let's call it CID. Nah, let's call it current ID. Current ID. And now these two are gonna act the same. So it's gonna be kind of like what we did with our catching guy. So here, let's so it starts a clone. Then we have a forever block, and we have an if else. Okay? And we're going to check it if equals, and we go to our variable. So if current ID is the same as ID, so my ID, then we want to show. So we're going to go get our change effect. So not change, sorry, set, and set. And it's going to be 80. Okay, and then it's 0 if it's our effect. Okay. And then we also have to set our current ID and our. No, actually, we don't. Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, so in the code, we need to set our IDs. So, of course, we need to set our. So, set here, set ID to 1. Okay. And then this thing follows what the ID is. And then we're going to change the ID by 1. Okay. And we're going to do this the same for all 4 inside the all 4 loops. And change ID here. Okay. Let's
16. Wait, no. Oh. I got
You ready to move on?
15 balls. My clone ID says. Oh, wait, never mind. It's just extra clone ID.
Yeah, it's the extra. So you ready to move on? Are you still working on something?
Ready to move on.
What was that?
Ready and move on.
Ah, okay. So yeah, so now we have all our IDs for our objects that are falling. Now, what we need to do is we know that the top ones, it's ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And the middle ones are 6, 7 through 10, and then finally 11 through 15. So what we need to do is first we are going to choose a random number between those numbers, and then that one is going to appear. So I'm going to help you out with the first one. Then you need to figure out how to do the next ones. Okay. So we have when the flag is clicked, forever, and we are going to choose a random number. So pick a random number and set that to our variable. So set
Current ID.
Yeah, set current ID to a random number between 1 and 5. Okay. And then you're going to wait. Okay. And then that should be the first one. So far it looks good. It's choosing a random apple. Okay. So try to figure out how to do the rest of the, wait, why is it
Alright,
still,
doing it.
oops, set color, set ghost. Aha. There you go. That's better. Okay, so you need to figure out how to do the other two rows. Okay.
Already on it.
I'm sorry?
Already finished.
Oh, you already finished. Oh, can I see it? Can you press play? So why isn't it lighting up the last one?
Oops, I forgot to put the
Ah, I see. Yep, looks good.
oh. Ha, ha, he, ho, ha.
Okay, now the next thing is how. What's our next thing? What should we do next?
Um, make it so the ball's fall, and if it touches the edge, you lose. Or if it touches the shadow, then it goes back to its position.
If it touches a shadow,
I mean, if it touches the not the one with no ghost effect, like if it touches the the refer, the cover with no ghost effect.
yeah. So we need to figure out how to catch this object. So now how do we figure this out?
I don't know. When they
Okay.
start as a clone.
Not quite, because remember these clones do not touch each other, so we don't know who touched who. So instead, we do have IDs, and then we have which number was selected. So remember modular numbers. That's for remainders. So what we're gonna do is we know the bottom row 11 through 15. Or sorry, the bottom row is 11 through 15, right? So what we need to do is compare that with the current ID we have selected. So we're going to compare those. If they're the same, that means we caught that object. If they're not the same, that means we missed it. Okay. So let's go to Calvaret, or sorry, our catcher.
Referee.
Okay. Yeah. So here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a different block. So we're gonna say, um, with our flag is clicked.
And then.
So when the flag is clicked, forever, we're going to check if And then the apple is called what? C was variables. Yes, current ID. So we're gonna say if current ID is equal to
clone
um,
to
player ID. Okay. So if those two are the same, then that means we caught one. But what's the problem again? Remember, this current ID is the ID starting from 11 and going through 15. So what we need to do is we need to do something called modular. So mod, and we're going to say current ID mod 5. Okay, so we're going to divide this number by 5, and then whatever's remainder, that's the number that's going to pop out. So for example, my first ID starts at 11, right? So 11 modular 5. What's well, I don't know if you know division, but you can do so it's 11 divided by 5. So how many times does 5 go into 11?
what?
Evenly. So 5 goes into 11 evenly 2 times, right? So 5 times 5 is 10. And what's 11 minus 10?
1.
So one's left over, and that's exactly what our player ID is. Okay, so let's put these together. Okay, and we put this in the if and in the forever. Okay, so if we do that, then we're going to add a point, right? So here we're gonna make a variable, and we're gonna call it points. Okay, and we're gonna set. No, not set. Sorry. Well, yeah, we do have to set the it's gonna
For
be set
both.
points, and then we need to change points by 1. And of course, we need to wait a couple seconds. So wait, just 1 second is fine. But here now we can play. I got 1 point, 2 points. But we have a problem. I see another problem. Do your points go up?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're going up. So if it's far away, so if it's all the way on top, you're still getting points, and that's not correct. You should only get points when it's the last one. So that's the problem with the modular. So what you need to do is we need to put an and say if current ID is greater than 11, then you can start doing this stuff. So here we're gonna grab an and here a greater than sign, and we're gonna say if current ID is greater than 10, okay, and this stuff, then we can change our points. So now when we press flag, okay, so now we can catch it, no problem.
And that's how you get points.
So, so now it's randomly spawning, right? Okay, so the yours works, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna uncheck all the other variables. We don't need the other variables. So just make sure you uncheck the other variables. We don't need them.
Ah, I almost made a new variable.
Okay. So now the next thing we need to do is we're going to subtract points. Okay. So what's going to happen is Apple is going to have a second costume. Okay. Or whatever object you have, it's going to have a second costume. You can just duplicate and make it red, or if it has if it already has something else, you can, or if you want to draw another one, you can grab another sprite, the costume. That's fine too. I'm going to grab a
Um,
I'm gonna grab a ball, basketball.
ball. Why? No, ball. Mm, ball. 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 Why can't? There's no red ball. Like this one just. Blue. Ready.
Okay. So once you have that object, the apple is going to turn into that other. Oh, sorry, your ball is going to turn to that other thing. So how are we going to do this?
The
How do
ball.
we change? Hmm?
The ball turns into another color.
Yeah. So what we need to go do is go to the ball, and then before it spawned, before you start choosing between 1 and 5, we need to choose a random number 1 and 2. Okay. If it chooses 1, it's going to be one of the stuff. If it chooses 2, it becomes the other thing. Okay. So let's do this. So we're gonna have uh if I think no if else if else, and we choose a random number. If that random number is 1, so just say like pick a random number between 1 and 2. If that number is 1, then we're going to change our costume to basketball, or sorry, not basketball, apple, and I'm gonna change the other one to basketball.
Ballerumi. Red. Ah,
Okay, did you get it?
wait. I need to put it in the correct whatever. What?
So what's going on?
It switches too fast.
Yeah, it switches too fast and it doesn't switch to the correct one. So what we need to do is we need to actually set this number into a variable. So just like we did with our current ID, we need to make a current costume. So if that current costume is now going to be either 1 or 0, and depending on which one it chooses, that is what it's going to change to. So let's go to variables, and we're going to create a variable. Make sure it's for all sprites, and we're going to call it current costume. Okay. All right, make sure it's for all sprites. Press OK. And now what we're going to do is we're going to assign that number into the random, pick a random number. So here we're going to set current costume to pick a random number between 1 and 2. Okay. And then that is actually going to go by itself. Is going to go up here where we have set current ID, because it has to first choose a random costume and then it's going to start spawning that object. And then here inside the forever block, when I start as a clone, we're going to say if current costume equals 1, then it changes to apple. If it's not, then it changes to basketball. Okay. Now I press flag. So we have a problem. Oh, you said not done. Okay. Let me know when you're ready, okay? Oh, you're done, I think. Yeah.
All of them would become one color.
Yeah, so that's the problem. All of them changes. So how do we fix this problem? How do we say only the stuff I selected, only the ID I selected, change the costume?
If something around it.
So we're just gonna edit the one on top of it. You see how the one on top, it says current ID equals ID. So here we're just gonna say and we're just gonna copy this one, duplicate, and we're gonna say if current ID and current costume equals 1, then select the apple. Yeah. So now when we press play,
Something's wrong.
what happened?
Like, something's wrong with the code. Like I'm trying to put the equals in the and, but when I put it in, then it just goes back into the if and, like into the if then, and I can't even put it in.
What?
So if I do this, then once I like the part is light, and when I let go, it immediately goes back to the if then. I mean, it doesn't.
Oh, it's just your screen is very small. So try moving a little bit to the right. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta move a little more. There you go. Yeah, you made your thing a little too big. Your variable.
I know. That means all of them are still blue.
Mm-hmm. And how do we change that?
Something.
So how do we change this? What was that? So how do you change this, man? So remember, all our sprites right now are the basketball, right? So that means each one is being changed by the code, and then when the basketball appears, it's also being changed. So here, let's take a look at this middle part. Here, even though the current ID doesn't change for some of them, it switches to basketball because this, let's just say this one that's not being selected, this ID is not being selected, so it changes to basketball by default, right? So in order to make this work better, we need to add it to this part here, because this part says only if the current ID is selected, then change it. Okay. So here we're going to say we're going to grab our if statement, our if block. So let's grab a just a normal if. I'm going to put it down here where it says a ghost, and we're going to say if our current costume equals 1,
Wait,
then
I need to get the if.
no, you can use the if else. We need the if else.
Oh,
Mhm.
I mean the if else in the if.
Yeah, right inside, right below the set ghost effect to 0. So once you have that, then your costume would only change to that that object. Now, if it's not being selected, if it's not the current ID, we should just switch it back to the apple.
No.
So we're gonna go to looks and then set switch costume to, and we're gonna do apple. Okay. So now if you take a look at the game now has all the apples, and then only when the basketballs appears, only that sprite changes to that negative object.
Now all of them are normal.
Now what happens?
All of them are normal. Now all of them are just the normal color, but
Mhm.
sometimes the current one just changes color and not any of the others, which is good.
Yeah. So that's good, right? So we have this correct. Now, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna catch this object? What if we accidentally like touch this object? How are we gonna subtract points?
Um, if well,
Mm-hmm.
if current costume equals 2 and
So what's it gonna be?
and if her um,
So remember, all our point stuff is on the referee, right? So let's click on the referee and let's take a look at how we fix the problem. How are we handling the problem with catching the ball, or catching the catching the
oh,
ball.
the if inside
Uh huh.
the inside the inside it,
Inside the other if. Okay.
but put it around the change points by 1.
Okay. And what are we checking?
If 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 if
Mm-hmm.
if current costume equals 1,
Good.
and then another if.
Okay.
Wait, I think I can make it shorter maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Make the if inside the if into an if else.
Perfect.
And then put the off and then put the and put the change points inside the if, and
Mm-hmm.
after else do change points by -1.
Okay. And let's take a look at it.
And then
Does it work?
yeah. And if you go under it, you lose points. Wait, something wrong. How come? How come my current costume is staying at 1? Oh, never mind.
Okay, try to catch the blue ball. Okay, you are getting points subtracted, so that's good.
And I do get points. Sometimes the blue ball doesn't subtract points.
Okay, the reason why the blue ball doesn't subtract it, because we have wait for 1 second, so it's too much waiting. Put that wait block right after the if, so that you see how there's two wait blocks. Yeah, it's only one wait block after the if. And erase that one. Correct. So now it will correctly register your things because it was waiting for too much.
I don't like how it can get you to negative points.
Okay. So what do you want to do?
So if points is less than 0, then set the points to 0.
Correct. Do that.
But where?
Right after you change the points. So remember, just like we did with our character position, character ID. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Wait. Which? Um, less than. Don't. Oh, so checked. Is less than 0. Then set. Yes. Look, it stays at 0.
Okay. Are you able to set the points to its
I put
hmm?
the points less than 0, then set points to 0 after the change points by -1.
By -1? Yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Okay. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to fix this problem where you see how when I guess in your case the ball spawns. Sometimes it spawns too far to the right or too far to the left, and you have to rush all the way over there. So we're gonna change that. Let's see. So we need to change that so it can fall only on that straight row. So how do you think we're gonna do this?
What?
So you see how the ball just keeps falling, or the apple keeps falling, but it falls on different rows. Oh, sorry, columns. We want the same column of when it falls. So when we see that apple blink on the first one, it should keep falling down on that
Go,
same column.
go to the apple
Mm-hmm.
and go to the one flag click with the set current ID.
Okay. Now what?
don't know.
So instead of choosing three random numbers, how is instead of three, what should we be choosing?
What?
Yeah, we should just be choosing one random number, right? And then that one random number is going to be 1 through 5. And then depending on what number you choose, you're just going to add how much to it for the next row. 5, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
plus and
Mm-hmm.
then and then ah current ID
Mm-hmm.
current ID plus 5 plus 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, try it out.
Yep. Yes, it works.
Mhm. See, nice, right? Now it's better. Okay.
But there's still a problem.
What's the problem?
Like sometimes I'm already on the ball's row, but when the but when the ball gets to me, it doesn't even get the point, and it doesn't give me the points. Then I have to.
Oh, okay. So what you were just doing right now, the reason why, because your position is at 0. You never set your position to 1. So here, I'll help you fix that. Let me just catch up with what you did. Plus, plus. Okay, so +5 and +5. Okay, so perfect. It works. So we were on the so on the catching stuff. So our current costume. Okay, yeah, you see how our current costume is not set to anything. Our current costume is player ID. Sorry, player ID is never set. Our player ID is see it changes 1 or -1, and then if whatever ID we have, then it clamps it. So to change this, we are going to just set up here, set player ID to 1. Okay, and yeah, and that should fix your problem. So
What
if it
did you say?
just see this one, set player ID to 1. So go to the player or the referee, I mean, and just on when the flag right after when the flag is clicked, just set player ID to 1. Mhm. Because player ID is never set. Mhm. Yep, and that fixes your problem. So now if you just stand still and let the ball come to you, let's see. So far it's working.
The
Oh,
blue.
that didn't work. That's interesting.
No, that didn't work.
So blue ball's not working?
Yeah. No, now the blue ball is work. No, it keeps changing from blue ball not working and yellow ball working and to yellow ball not working and blue ball working. It keeps changing.
Let's see what's going on.
Wait, can you even read it?
Yeah, I'm looking at Michael because I think I have the same problem. Um,
Fine. Were you doing here, hon? What were you doing here, hon?
Okay, try this. Change the weight. The weight for every time you move. So click on the referee. And then where it says yeah, instead of 1 second, do 0.75. And try that. See if it works.
2. Oh. Now it's not even working at all. It's not working at all now.
Can you move a little bit to the right of the point of the stuff with the points? Because I think
Now the yellow's working. But now the blue doesn't work.
Okay, can you move your a little bit to the right? I want to see the bottom one, the one in the corner, bottom right. Yeah, that part. Oh, I see your problem. It's not greater than 11. It's greater than 10.
Where?
The first line, the first green one, at the end, you have 11. It should be 10 because our first ID is 11. That's why the first column wasn't working.
Oh. What? But the yellow one didn't work. That yellow one didn't work.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what the problem is. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. Because the last row is not going to work because let's see. The first row works, but the last row doesn't work. And then anything below it does work. Okay, so it's just the last row that doesn't work, Min.
Okay.
And the reason why it doesn't work is because yeah, it's so can you change back the wait point 75 seconds back to 1 second? And that should that's and then the last row it's not working because the modular it's not equal to the player ID because the player ID it's okay, how are we gonna fix this? Because player ID only goes 1 through 5, right? And then 5 modular 5 is equal to 0, but then player ID never becomes 0. It becomes 5. Okay. So let's do some fixing. So here we're gonna grab an OR, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna say current mod is equal to that, or uh, and we're gonna do the same thing here.
No.
And instead of this, it's gonna be 0. I think that should fix.
Then put the ore in.
Yeah.
Oh. The ore and an ant.
No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Why not?
The yellow works on the last row, but I'm not sure if the blue would work.
Yeah, the blue works too. It's just even if you're not standing there, it's going to because come on, why is this random stuff doing nothing? Okay, so it does work. This works. Oh, yeah, the fix is bad. Okay, Min, make sure you have this part. So take a look at my screen. Okay, and then you see how we have or. I added an and to this or. Yeah, so this and should be okay. Hold on, let me pull everything out from them. Uh, it should look like this. Okay.
I need
Hmm. So yeah, put that in the or. And that goes there, and then we have current ID mod 0 and so grab another and then put it there and there. And player ID equals 5. Yeah, and then connect them. No, that doesn't go there. This one goes on top, so this one just goes snaps here. Yeah, and then this one just snaps there. And then put this in the if.
Wow, that's actually big.
Okay, so does it work now? Are you able to catch the object at the end?
What?
So all the way to the edge, remember that you weren't able to catch the object?
Yeah.
So does it work now?
Yes.
Let me see.
Wait, I don't know. I have to see.
I catch that yellow object. Okay. Catch it, catch it, catch it, catch it. We want the one at the edge.
I was trying to see if it works without, if with even if it doesn't work, even if you're not standing there. This don't works.
3. Okay, good. Knock it out. Oh, okay. Don't touch it. And good. It doesn't give you points, so it's good. It's working. Now, the whole problem that we have is that this when it gets to 5, because we have 5 mod 5. 5 mod 5 gives you back 0 because 5 is divided by 5 full. There's no remainder, so it returns a 0. But then player ID never turns to a 0. It's always a 0 through 4. Sorry, 1 through 5. So there's never a 5. So that's why we have here this or that says if that mod 5 is equal to 0 and the ID is 5, that means we are at the edge. Then we're gonna do and then we continue here. So that's the problem we had. But okay, hopefully that
I
fixes.
didn't understand what you said.
Okay, so this is it's a little harder math. So here I'll have you done division?
Kind
Kinda.
of like division,
What's that?
long division.
Okay, you've done long division.
Yeah.
Okay, let me. Okay, so you know how to do the basic. So you're watching my screen, right? Right.
How do you get to that whiteboard? And I don't
Oh no
even.
no, you can't. Just look at my screen. I'm just gonna show you something. Okay, so let's say we have a number 96, right? So 96. If I divide 96 by 3, what's my answer? What
Uh,
do I do?
3 9 divided by 3 is 3.
Hmm.
0. Bring down 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times.
Okay, so the answer is 32, right? But now, what if I have 98? What's my answer here?
32 with the remainder of 2.
So remainder 2, right? So we know, so this remainder 2, that's what this percent sign is in programming. So whenever you see this percent sign in programming, this means, oh, give me back this. Give me back the remainder. So that's what we were doing with modulo, because our modulo, remember, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, right? So imagine these numbers were the balls, right? And each one has their ID. So now we were only looking for this row. So to get this row, we have to do the percent of 5, okay? So 11, so imagine this is a division sign. So 11 divided by 5 gives you back what?
2 with the remainder of 1.
Yeah, 2 remainder 1, right? Remainder 1. So this remainder 1, actually, this gives us back 1, okay? Because we have remainder 1. So this is just remainder. So now if I do 12 modulo 5, what would this give me back?
2.
2, because there's 2 left over. So now if I do 15 divided by 5, modulo 5,
0.
it would give us back 0. So you see the problem here? The problem is that we're getting back a 0. And then here, we're comparing this to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This and this go together, and this is good, this is good, this is good. But then this here becomes 0 and 5. Is 0 and 5 the same?
No.
No. So this is the problem we had. So that's why here we fix this problem by saying if this becomes 0, so the thing we just saw, right? If it's zero and the ID is 5, so that means you're at the edge here. So that's what we were fixing here with the modulo. I know it's a little confusing, but that's how we because we when you program you usually start at zero. Here I didn't start at zero. Here I started. You see how I put one, um, just to make it easier for you to understand. I put it at one, but to work with modulo or division in programming, you always have to start with zero. Okay. So now the next part is working with lists. So we're gonna fix this. We're gonna add list to this game. But actually, we're gonna take
What?
a. We're gonna stop here for now. What's that?
What to the game?
We're gonna add lists. So here on variable, you see where it says make a list. Yeah. So we're gonna figure out how lists work and how to add a list to this game. Okay. So we're actually gonna see that next time tomorrow. So do you have any questions for this game?
No.
Okay. So yeah, so that's it for today, Min. And then we'll see you tomorrow with the list stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Take care, Min. Bye.
Bye bye.